Justice Thursday. Today, last week on our Justice Thursday conversation, we're talking about, review of the penal code and the procedure code, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, today, we're also now talking about, again, revised guidelines on timely processing of payment of fines and cash bail. Sasa hii ni ya wale watu wa pale chini, mama mboga, mtu wa kuuza smoky, kila mtu amekuwa hapo ndani. We are joined by two ladies in the studio. The Honorable Caroline Kabucho is the Registrar of the Magistrate's Courts, and the Honorable Elizabeth Tanui is the Deputy Registrar for Automation in the Judiciary. Good morning, Honorables. Your Honors.
Good morning.
Your Honor, unajua kila mtu siku hizi ni wakili.
Kila mtu.
Bora useme. Bora useme tu. And you have few phrases kama pleadings.
And just say,
Big one.
and if you say things like, the law is very clear.
Yes.
Like I'm on record.
Yes.
Ni wakili pia.
Yes.
Karibuni sana.
Asante.
Good to have you again, ladies. City has the day's proverb.
I do.
And it's from...
The Republic of Rwanda.
Right.
Yes. If you shake a dog, you shake its owner.
If you shake a dog, you shake its owner.
Yes, in the previous hour, we were fortunate to have somebody who understands the Kiswahili equivalent, and it goes this way. Piga mbwa, ujue mwenyewe.
Guesswork, maybe?
Oh, no. You don't need to guess, Your Honor. You just need to give your opinion. You see,
Oh, okay.
with your interpretation and opinion, you can't be wrong.
Fine.
Yes.
If I own a dog and you hit my dog and it's wails or barks, I'll have to come and find out what has happened to my dog.
And when you find out, what will you do? That I'm the one who has hit your dog. Or more likely,
Then I pick up beef with you as
kicked your
opposed to you
dog.
picking beef with my dog.
See?
Honorable Tanui, what's yours?
It will definitely back, and I will come out to check on it. So I agree with Honorable Kabucho. Yeah, I will definitely have to come and check on what's happening. It will back.
It's basically like saying if a dog is coming and barking at you and gonga yeye. Utajua nani
Na
ameituma.
mwenyewe akuje.
Ama tupie mawe.
Mwenyewe atakuja. There was once a conversation like that a couple of years back. It involved the Honorable Danson Mugatana. Then he was an assistant minister, and the Honorable Raila Odinga. Then he was prime minister. And there was back and forth, and he was like, don't deal with the dog.
Deal with the owner.
Deal with the owner.
Maybe if you're not seeing the owner, you hit the dog too.
Yes. Gonga umbwa. Mwenyewe atatokezea.
The one will come out first.
Yeah, So you're the one who had sent this one. You set the dogs on me. Kuja, call to be direct. Stop going round the corners. Okay, so first let's start with definitions. Many times people get confused when you hear bail, bond, cash bail, police bond, free bond. What are all those things? Let's start with you, Honorable Tanui.
So when you talk about bail, you are basically talking about cash. So that if then I pronounce that I've given you cash bail of 2,000 shillings, you'll definitely know when I'm talking about bail that you then pay cash, which cash you are depositing as a commitment that you will attend court when you're required to attend, failure of which then it will be forfeited to the state. A bond, on the other hand, is you are then required to bring in either somebody to stand in as surety for yourself, or even if it is your own personal bond, then you are giving a promise to court that I will attend court on this particular day, failure of which I will either give this particular, security, or something will happen.
Okay.
But basically when we are talking about bonds, then there is somebody else who is coming in to stand for you.
It is not cash.
It is not cash.
Surety of a similar amount.
So surety of a similar amount, maybe you've been given a cash bail of 500,000. In the alternative, a surety of a similar amount. So then that means if it is a title deed or if it's a logbook, that then you deposit in court, and if you do not attend, the same is forfeited to the state.
Okay.
Yes.
So it starts with that value, cash bail of X amount of money,
Yeah.
Or in the alternative, surety of
bring
a similar
something
amount.
that's of similar
Similar
value.
Exactly.
Okay.
I can't bring a relative to perhaps be put in jail for myself as I go free.
No, you see,
That sounds surety.
it is. Because you see, at that time, I'm not saying bring a relative. She has pronounced that, you are released on cash bail of 10,000 shillings. In the alternative, bond of similar amount. So the person who has that particular surety could be your brother, who has a logbook. So your brother will come in and take oath and say, I will ensure
If this
that Charles...
person does not come,
Yeah, Charles comes to court. If he does not come, then I will...
Ask me.
yeah.
Okay.
Recently, the Honorable Muhammad Ali had a similar issue in court. Remember, he had stood bond for somebody in a case. That person did not turn up in court, and now Muhammad Ali had to come to court and explain and say, I am actually looking for the same guy.
Exactly.
Mukimuona tafadhali simuoni.
Niko kama wewe.
The court actually gives you time to look for the person. But if they don't get them, then you either deposit that amount or your surety is forfeited to the state. So that is why you have to be very, very careful when you're standing surety for somebody.
Someone.
Yes.
You speak of a personal bond. Is there a threshold in terms of the offense here that we're talking about? Because can you now say, look, okay,
This one we need 3 people.
does my personal bond suffice until a certain point? Depending on, or does it depend on what it is? When can I give? Because essentially a personal bond, from what you said, is a promise.
Yeah,
I
that
have
I'll come.
said that I will do this. So based on that, allow me to go home, and when you ask me to come to court, that's what it is, isn't it?
Yes.
That I've said, my promise, my commitment. Does the offense, the charge, whatever it may be, does it matter? Or does it matter? Can I give my personal bond for anything?
No.
Okay, so
Just
what is
for
the threshold for that?
Most of the time, the personal bond is given for petty offences.
Okay.
For the petty offences, you get personal bond. Or sometimes you can find there are penal pleas, maybe something like assault. But the circumstances are such that maybe it's a lady who has left children behind and has no other means. So the court can use its discretion and say, give me a personal bond that you will come. And maybe the matter is maybe assault, which is penal. But most of the time, it's for the petty pleas that you get to get the personal bond.
What do you consider when then granting this bond? And are people aware that in these petty offences, and I ask this because one of the burdens that we see, that people then are remanded because they have no money to pay bail, and they are not aware that they can offer a personal bond that would then be considered by the judicial officer, right?
Yeah.
So, is it knowledge? Is it public knowledge that, okay, I can't afford this bail of whatever it may be, 10,000 bob, because a lot of people cannot.
Yep.
To then say, you know what, it's a petty offense. I left my children at home because there's no one to take care of them. I assaulted this man because he had held a knife to my neck and he was about to murder me. And I have my children at home. I don't have money for this thing. So are people aware that?
That one is not a petty offense. but
No,
that's-
but she said in some cases, she said in some
Circumstances.
circumstances that would be penal in nature, right? And she mentioned one of those of assault,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So now in that case, can you then now say, based on that, this is my personal commitment? Are people aware that this 10,000 that's like a cloud, I don't have it, that instead
substitute
of,
it.
I can say, take my promise as surety?
What happens in the first instant, that might not occur because you take your plea and you're given your cash bail or bond.
Yeah.
In most instances, for it now to be changed to personal bond is when you come back, you did not manage, but you come back to court and you plead with the court.
Okay.
I cannot afford this. Maybe at the first mention when you come back in 2 weeks, that is when now you plead with the court, I cannot afford this and these are my circumstances. But in the first instance, the court might not be in a situation to understand your circumstances.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What sort of situation would come about that would disable the court from understanding my circumstances?
Just repeat that again.
Okay. I have come back to court I'm explaining. What would the court consider acceptable when I'm presenting it? Because when you say there is a likelihood the court may not consider my circumstances as being acceptable, meaning the reason I'm giving, they feel, what is it that would bring this about?
Maybe you've been there before, or you had absconded before. You know, maybe you had been given the same thing, you had absconded, you've come back.
I'm a serial offender.
Or
And the
absconder.
excuse that you're giving nilikuwa
Has been
nimeenda
given
ma-
before.
nilikuwa nimeenda matanga.
In such instances, I think just to echo what Honorable Kabucho said, the magistrates would seek for prebail reports where the probation officers would then interview your relatives. Sometimes even where you're staying is, unknown sometimes. Yeah, so we would really want to know who is it that we can, get to know,
Even the chief.
understand the chief, so that when you don't attend, there's somebody to call, there's somebody to inquire from. So once we have the prebail report, and then the court is in a better picture to understand you and the circumstances surrounding you.
Something has been happening in the courts. And in fact, now this one comes to Honorable Kabucho because you're the registrar of the magistrates' courts. Someone has been taken to that magistrate's court. Magistrate, so I release you on cash bail of X amount, 15,000 shillings. What happens next? Magistrate has said 15,000 shillings, I release you cash bail 15,000 shillings and or bond of this much or surety of this much, blah, 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 blah. And then the registrar says, next, case blah, 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 blah. Mmetolewa haraka haraka. What happens? Where does that person go from there? And when do they get their freedom?
Now, and that is why we have these guidelines.
Yes. So
Because-
we want to start with,
What happens?
yes.
So, and if you've been, I don't know if you've been to court, but if you've been to court, the minute it's read to you, you're returned as you figure
Returned
out
where?
how to
Where?
you go into the cells
And those are the ones downstairs.
behind.
Dungeons.
Depending on which court. There are some which are
There are
downstairs.
basements,
Maybe
others
you've
are
gone to one
behind.
which is downstairs. There are some which are behind.
Yeah. So you
Yes.
go back to
We
cell
don't have,
because that's where you
yeah,
came
uniform
from
structure.
Yes.
when your case was called.
Yes.
Okay.
So you go back as your bail is being processed. And this is where now we are trying to cut the bureaucracy because we had 15 steps. So the magistrate has read it out, you've gone. Then the court clerk has prepared the committal warrants, has prepared the
No, not really. The
committal warrants, which are then taken to the registry to be recorded in the register, then uploaded to the CTS, then taken to the cash office for the invoice to be prepared. And then from there, it is taken to the court admin for approval. And then you pay. Then the release warrants are prepared, signed, taken to the magistrate for signing, then back to the register. And then now you're released.
Na
Then
uombe
a copy
Mungu hii
is-
mambo yote happen
Inafanyika haraka.
before 5.
Sorry, please. These things you've listed. There's one thing you've said there that it's taken back to the magistrate for approval. This same magistrate that said you may go, or is it a different magistrate?
They are approving that you have.
The same magistrate
you have
who
paid.
possibly is in session
Yes.
doing something else.
Yes, that is why now we are saying the guidelines. Let everything now be done in court.
We will come
When
into.
it is
We will come
Okay.
into.
Yes.
We'll come into it's a uni shortly. First of all, we are huku in,
Pale-
this-
Inside,
Misri.
behind.
in Misri. How many steps are we saying? 15 steps.
Yes.
And we are hoping that number one, because you, of course, didn't come to court with your phone, maybe even your relatives were not there, they're not aware that you've been arrested, you've been taken to court. When you're taken back to the cell there, it's upon you to mobilize how you shall raise this bail,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
It's you to decide to mobilize how you shall raise the bail.
Yes.
As these are the processes going on, then you pay, and then the process continues. Because at some point, it will come to the next step is dependent on you actually producing the money.
Yes.
So we go to the next ones.
And it's not cash, eh?
And it's not cash. It has to be deposited
Yes, or M-Pesa,
or M-Pesa by you who's in the cell,
or your relative.
but who's not aware that you're here.
Alafu gari
5:30 ikifika, a lorry,
Inakujanga for
4.
By the way, it
Inside.
it reverses, and the doors are open, so to give you the full view of
your next.
your immediate accommodation. Yes,
So when the lorry comes and it has taken you to remand, right? At that point now you're in remand.
Yes.
You're not going back to police cell.
no.
You're going now to
remand.
prison remand. different place from where you
started
spent the
looking
night.
from.
When you go there, do you need to be brought back to court for you to complete this process?
No.
So
Now,
even
the court
when you
will-
go
the,
to
the
remand,
process will be completed, and then now somebody will bring the release warrant to
Remand.
the remand to release you from there. Now you
Okay.
won't come back to it.
but now that person is the remand officers.
in prison.
Yeah, it's in prison. Yeah.
So now it's the prisons department now to start helping you process the next steps.
No, everything is finished at court. What is produced at the prison or at the remand home is your release order,
Okay.
signed by a magistrate.
No, if my question is, once I've gone to remand, okay, let's say if my relatives were aware, but they were unable to raise the 15,000 shillings by the time I've gone to remand. Tomorrow, they have the bank slip to show that I have paid.
Yes.
Are they coming to court or are they going to industrial area?
They have to come to court to pick a release order to go to industry area.
Okay.
And just to note that when you spend a night, now it won't be 15,000, it will be less.
That's by.
By how
Okay.
much?
There's a calculation.
Yeah, there is an
There's a way it's
algorithm.
calculated. It
240 or
reduces.
something. Yeah.
So essentially,
Pain
the
and
le-
suffering has been compensated.
yes,
for.
yes. So
For a day, for a night.
there's a monetary value to the pain and suffering of
Yeah.
spending a night in remand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's
Yeah.
for fines.
For fines.
Not,
For
not,
fines,
not,
not cash bill.
Not cash bill.
Not cash bill.
Fines. Yeah.
Oh, we are still at bail here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's bail.
Yeah, we're still
no,
at
the cash
bail.
Still at bail.
So,
So I
at
think
bail,
for-
it's the same
for-
amount.
Yeah.
Yes.
For you to really understand, because there are different trajectories.
Yes.
So you have been arrested.
Yes.
You brought to court.
Yes.
So you are either pleading guilty or not guilty. So let's take which one?
Guilty. Not guilty.
We are not
Not
guilty.
guilty.
So you're not guilty. So you and then
15,000.
you're given bond of 15,000, the cash bail of 15,000 shillings. So as you go back to the cells, as Honorable Kabucho has said, one thing that we need to understand is that there is already a committal warrant which is being prepared for you.
Okay.
So that you understand where the guidelines are coming from now and the steps that have been collapsed, is that as the magistrate is reading and as you're being taken to the court cells, you're taken with a committal warrant. So it is assumed that you may not pay. So you've already been committed. You get? So you're already going back to the court cells with committal warrants. Then remember,
What is a committal warrant?
A committal, you being
Committed.
to either the remand. For a child, they'll go to the remand home. For an adult, you'll go to prison.
Okay. So I am
So
being.
it's a form.
A
It's a
committal
form
warrant
that
is
is
basically
filled.
sending me to
Yes.
remand place.
Yes. A
Okay.
holding facility,
Okay.
whether it's a remand or a prison, depending on your age. So that is in the morning. And remember, you are a number. So assuming we are like 20, yes. So those particular files are then taken back to the registry for purposes of invoicing. Because you see, for you to pay, you need an invoice.
Yes.
Okay.
You're not just paying. You need an invoice which has a payment reference number. So you see, you have your relatives might have even heard that the magistrate has said that you actually have been given cash bail of 15,000, and they have.
They even have it
They
there.
have it. But you see, for them to then make payments, they need that particular invoice, and they have to wait for these files to move to the registry. So once they move to the registry, that is now where issues now start, because now you need to line up, queue in the registry for you to be given this invoice.
Yeah.
And this invoice is being automatically generated. I'm setting that so that we understand where the guidelines now come. So it is being automatically generated, but because we don't have your number, we need to print it for you in the registry. Then now your relatives are given, they make payments, and then now they go to the cash office for purposes of being given the invoice. I mean, sorry, the receipt,
The receipt.
which is also e-generated. But because we don't have your number, we have to print it and give it to you. And then once the receipt has been auto-generated, now a release order. Remember, you had been committed.
Yes.
A release order is then prepared.
On that commitment.
So reversing that commitment.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
you have to be released now because you had already been committed.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you are many, that is a process
Yes.
where one by one, because
Yeah.
you see, you are paying in different
Individually. From
and maybe you're paying at 1, you're paying at 2, you
Yeah.
paid at 11. So different files move differently. They are not all going together. Yeah. So that is if you don't then make payments by 5, of course you now go to prison, and then the next day your relatives now start running up and
But-
down. to get you out.
Your Honor, if I may ask, from everything you're saying, court proceedings and everything administrative about it is now automated, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, even court sessions are online.
Exactly.
All right. Now, is there a possibility or is there a reality that these systems could be connected to the prisons so that, for instance, if I am being committed to industrial area or wherever it is, they understand who is coming to them, and so that when I'm released, that even as you punch, they already know that
anza kupika
mwananchi mtukufu
ugali, ongezea
as a guest. Yes.
ongezea sahani moja, siti anakuja.
Yes, or punguza sahani moja,
Yes.
siti relatives wake wamemlipia so anatoka.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In fact,
Yeah.
these guidelines are a start. At the
Yeah,
back
we come to
end,
the guidelines.
for us, we are looking for integration of systems from the DPP to the prison to the police, so that again, even even if you don't pay day one, if you pay the following day or 2 days later, you don't have to come all the way. You already have an invoice. There's a public kiosk on the judiciary platform where you can check what was declared to be paid, and you pay via M-Pesa. Then the magistrate on the portal signs your release order and it is sent to prison. So you don't have to come.
You don't have to
That is
actually-
in the long term. That's what we are planning to do, so that you don't have to come back. You pay from where you are, and when you get to prison, you find they have already been sent an e-signed release order. Yes, that's the
So-
ideal situation and where we are hoping we are going.
We have started the first half. We're in Misri.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Sasa tuende Canaan.
Okay.
Tuende Canaan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sasawa. Yes, Canaan. After this break,
Yes.
we will hear, so what is in the pipeline and how are you revising these guidelines on timely processing of payment of fines and cash bail? What is it that you've been doing at the judiciary? So now these whole 15 steps are consolidated, reduced, and the person actually gets justice. Because the whole thing is about access to justice.
True.
Right? Okay, with us in the studio this morning is the Honorable Caroline Kabucho. She is the Registrar of the Magistrates Courts, and the Honorable Elizabeth Tanui is the Deputy Registrar in charge of automation at the Judiciary. We are talking about those revised guidelines on payment of fines and cash bail. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
Spice.
The Honorable Caroline Kabucho is the Registrar of the Magistrates Courts, and the Honorable Elizabeth Tanui, Deputy Registrar in charge of automation at the Judiciary. Guidelines on timely processing of payment of fines and cash bail. Undu?
Okay, so I think, so even as we're looking at the streamlining, first really understand, and because there are people who push these processes. So you can look at the brick and mortar, which is, hey, let's have these guidelines put in place. But the people who are pushing this caboose along, would there be softer skills as well? Or, just a softer approach to this? Because I really don't understand. So maybe you can walk us through. If you have a pile at your desk of these cash bail applications that have been approved by the magistrate, it's done. I'm trying to understand what happens between picking the piece of paper, giving you the thing, and we move.
Yeah.
It seems as though there's something, I don't know what it is, spirit hovering.
There's like a process.
Something.
Magistrate
there.
has done this.
It's done.
Court clerk, moved from there, from court clerk to registry.
Yes.
Registry, accounts department, come back.
Sour, we've paid.
Comes back to court.
It's finished. There's the pile. It's still 12 o'clock. So we're all right. But somehow,
It'll be 4.
it's 4 o'clock. And dee.
Reverse.
What is it?
Yes.
So that we can, what is it?
Let me allow Honorable Kabucho, because these are her people that we are talking about. I think it's only fair that she speaks to it.
Let's, without admitting that a lot goes on behind the scenes, the processes, maybe sometimes you'll find by the time the magistrate, as you had earlier raised, that the magistrate is in court by the time the release orders are coming. But I'll give you an example of Makadara. They have agreed, don't wait for me to finish court to come and sign this, because you could be doing a very long matter and you finish late.
Yeah.
They have had an agreement. As they come, bring them to court. even as I proceed with my matter, I can take 2 minutes to sign them off and they
Surely.
go back. As a way of mitigating these delays. Because sometimes you'll find 200, 300 of them are piling, waiting in the registry. There's also this matter, maybe a very serious defilement matter going on. By the time you finish, it is at 4 o'clock. So there's this agreement. As they come, bring them in, I sign and they go back. That's the agreement that they have had. But that is why we are also saying, and she will explain out of the 15, we have how much we have collapsed them, so that at the court, as the pleas are proceeding, as the magistrate's proceeding, all these other back end issues are also proceeding, but within the court. And then she can explain to us how much we have collapsed it and what gains are going to come out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so let's talk about now the guidelines. So Justice Come's vision first is social transformation through access to justice. So for her, the premium is on people-centered justice. When we explained about these processes, the 15, you will see that it is all about institution. The institution within. We are not really being responsive to the people that have come to us. And then one other thing that we need to understand, even as we talk about the guidelines, is the fact that there are different justice actors. We have the police, we have the prison, and all of them are on different phases in terms of transforming their spaces. So let's talk about this guideline. We have talked about the 15 steps. What the Chief Justice has now done is that because we have already automated the invoicing, we have automated the receipting of receipts, we need to bring all those processes back to court. And the reason why we are saying that we are coming inside court for purposes of invoicing and receipting is because when you are arrested and you may not have a phone, therefore we cannot be able to send to you the receipt, we cannot be able to send you the invoice. So the guidelines now give the magistrate or the courts an opportunity to have 2 people in court. You see, when the magistrate sits, there's usually the court assistant who is reading and assisting the magistrate. In terms of taking plea, you have been charged with A, B, and C, and then reads the next. That is court assistant number 1. So we have this person now who has been brought as court assistant number 2. This court assistant number 2, once the magistrate has done with the first plea, for instance, and you have entered a plea of not guilty and you have been given cash bail of 2,000 shillings, immediately that court assistant takes that order and feeds it into the system, generates an invoice. And because there is no way of me giving you that invoice through maybe a smartphone, or I might not have, taken the number of your relative, I have this particular court assistant number 2 has been resourced and capacitated with a printer, prints it in court, and gives that particular invoice to the accused person to hand it over to the relative of the relative of the accused person is in court. Then you're given that invoice. And you make your payments immediately if you have the payment at that point. Once you make that payment, the court assistant number 2, that particular one, can see that it is reflected in the system because all that process is automated. If you make the payments, then it is reflected immediately and a receipt is auto-generated. So I will
Same desk
print
assistant
for
too.
you the receipt, give it to you, and you walk out. What is it that we have done there? Remember, that is a plea of not guilty, and we have given you cash bail. So you have posted the cash bill, we give you the receipt, and we are hoping that you will walk out. We will talk about the challenges about you walking out with the receipt. So what has happened is that we have avoided the instances of having to manually prepare a committal. We are not preparing a committal. We are giving every accused person the time and the space to make payments. Unlike the other process where you're committed immediately. So committals, and it's a lot of paperwork, the committals and all that, and then you ascend. And then once now you are behind there, that is when you start kujipanga now, how do I pay? So you're given the space, you're given the time to make payments. And this person who is in court is facilitating you. There is no more going to the registry. There is no more go to the cash office. There is no more or go to the court administrator for purposes of approval.
If it may please you, Your Honor. Just physical. At as we are doing all these things
Yes.
with court assistant number
Yes,
2,
yes.
have I been taken to the dungeon or am I still here?
You are in court.
I'm still within.
The
Court.
court premises. So we will talk
I
about
haven't-
a
I
place
haven't-
like Makadara, where we have issues of space.
Yes.
What happens? Because you see, Makadara have an average of 100 pleas per day. So there is no way even of your relatives coming
Being in,
to court.
inside court.
So this will work in an ideal situation where, you are seated there, your relatives are actually in court. So once the court assistant now gives you the invoice, you make payments. You see, we are assuming that there is sufficient space
Yeah.
for you to do that. But now, a place like Makadara, and most of our courts are, constrained with space. So we will then facilitate a place where you will be
a
held,
holding room.
a holding room. But at this particular time, we are not processing you for committals. But this particular court assistant will ensure that you have the invoice. You see, that is the main thing.
Yeah.
Because you see, once plea has been taken, why get this invoice? And I'll talk about the automation process. This is now a semi-automated process where we do not have the benefit of having your number. But you see, the Chief Justice also in that guideline, paragraph 7, she has said the Directorate of ICT should automate this process within 30 days. We have 15 days within which to automate. And the automation will cover, this court assistant number 2 will actually get out of the process once we automate. Because you see, we will say, when the ODPP is posting the charge sheets, one of the things that they need to register is the number to which we will send the details of the invoice. So that
Okay.
even as the plea is being taken, immediately the plea is taken and I feed the system, the particulars of the invoice, which is the payment reference number, comes to that particular
Phone number.
that you had given to the police. So it could be a relative. So that now we make an announcement and we sensitize the
Public.
litigants that please, when you're giving that phone number, it is important because that is the number that we will use to process you. So because that has not happened, we are yet to configure those numbers. That's the reason why we are now bringing this court assistant number 2 to court, so that now there is no, go to the cash office or go to the registry for invoicing. All that should happen within court.
Seamlessly.
Seamlessly.
Can the court assistant move out of court and be in a tent somewhere out there, like in the case of Makadara?
Yeah.
It's congested and all.
Yes.
Because that process of magistrates saying this and the other, this is happening, can the court assistant be in a different room, court assistant number 2, where this is court assistant number 2, where we are doing the processing? When you move out of this room that you said you are facilitating, the court assistant number 2 can be there when they're sorting you out, where your relatives are, where you are also there, where you're not being challenged
Exactly.
with
yeah.
time and all.
That could be a very good, idea that we then give room. We could even have, a tent.
A tent.
Yeah.
Where
to
this
process.
particular person. So they should then be somebody who is moving. You see,
Moving the file.
moving
from
the files, because I
courtroom
need
to
to know. The reason why we are bringing this person to court is because the files are immediately given.
Yeah.
And you see, we don't want to wait for a pile.
lag of
So that
time.
I receive this, when the magistrate is on accused number 2, I'm already dealing with accused
With
number
number
1
one.
and invoicing, and that process is moving like that. But if you have to move me from court, it will mean that
Another
Then
person to
the
try.
file
Yes,
has
the
to
transfer,
come from.
and then we have to maybe keep 10 or 20 and then bring. So that will again bring in some
By-
issues. But I'm saying this is just a stopgap measure. In
Right.
fact, for the Chief Justice, it is just she's calling it short-term measure, and short-term for her is 30 days. Within 30 days, we should have automated this process, so that now that particular number that you're giving the police upon registration will be very important, because you will then get the invoice, and we are also automating the release order, so that you now get an automated release order. There is no more manual work. Now, let me bring in the issue of, you see now the police, we have so much automated our systems in the judicial system, but we now have the prisons and the police who are in different phases in terms of automation. We still have issues of they can only accept manual release orders. They can only accept manual committal warrants. So there is also the issue of, in as much as the Chief Justice is moving with this, we really need the other justice actors in the criminal justice ecosystem to move so that we move together. So there will be still challenges in terms of, even if we automate the release orders and the committal warrants, what do we do to ensure that, as Charles said, the police can log into a system and see that Elizabeth is visiting us today, because at 4 p.m. she will not have posted.
Isn't it? Aren't we looking at avenues then for, let's just, if we beautify it a bit, talk about the commercialization of some of these loopholes? Because I can see a situation very clearly where on one side you've automated everything, but on the other side, somebody's going to say, well, I need a manual thing. That system, I need a manual thing in order for me to release somebody. And then now we see this whole game of running around where maybe somebody's going to be persuaded to pay a little bit extra so that I can look at where this automated thing has come from. For me, it just becomes a situation whereby your initial bail may have been 5,000 shillings, but at the end of the day, you end up paying God knows how much. Again, looking at where corruption then is rife. You can't run away from that reality, that it is happening.
No, we're still living a gap somewhere.
And almost intentionally for it to happen.
No, what is happening? The Chief Justice is also the chair of the NCAJ, the National Council on Administration of Justice. And this has been escalated to that level. And being the chair then, she's at a position where she will deal with other actors in the justice system. To also, like the ODPP have really automated. Now even the pleas are done through the Wadilifu system. There's just a bit of challenge that sometimes they upload and our CTS doesn't pick up in real time and it's being addressed. But even with the other justice players at the NCAJ level, it's being addressed so that we try and move at the same pace.
What do they need? See,
Automation.
It's all automation
It's
and,
all about
and budget.
automation.
But what we've done, before we come to Eric, also to mitigate on this, so that we don't leave them behind, we have given them pathways within our system. The way we have created, an e-filing account for all of us, we have also created an account for the prisons, an account for the police. What we are doing now is configuring. Within these 15 days, you will see that they will also have a pathway of plugging into our system. So we are not waiting for them to put their systems in place. We are mitigating and ensuring that we open up pathways for them. So what will happen is that for every police station, there will be an account dedicated specifically for that particular police station. For every prison, there will be an account dedicated for that particular prison. So that then, the way it is even happening now, they have an office. That office is the office that deals with all their manual records. So they will go to that particular office and be able to check and have credentials to that particular account, so that if it is the in charge of that particular police station, who is the only one who can then log into that account. So we do not want to leave anyone behind. We have ensured that they plug into this system that we have created.
How can you pull them? Because they're behind. How can you pull them with you? Is there any... So NCAJ is not a membership club, a business management organization where you come and you opt in. The people who are members of the NCAJ are clearly defined on who they are. The guidelines that have been developed and the CJ has signed off on them are binding on the judiciary. Can they be binding on the National Council on the Administration of Justice, which is an institution created and given to the CJ to chair? Can they be binding? So that these guidelines also apply to the prosecution, they apply to police, they apply to the prisons department. We are basically talking about, apart from the ODPP, which is an independent office, one other ministry. Okay, 2 different departments, but yeah.
There are actually a number. There is the probation, there is the children.
Okay, those ones as well.
Yeah, so there are a number of justice actors. So I know Honorable Kabucho will say something on that. But I think the bigger picture is also the issue of reviewing the laws and the regulations and the manuals and the policies. Because you see, in as much as they would really want to deal with these automated processes, we are still, anchored on procedures, policies, and manuals which speak to paper-based processes.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing an issue of, yes, having the NCAJ, but we need an entire overhaul of the policies and the legal infrastructure that we are currently running through. So we might run on the practice direction or guidelines the way the Chief Justice has done, but then that really does not have,
force of.
Yeah, the force of law.
The thing is, apart from the NCJ, we have the CUCs, the Court Users Committees. And at this point, even in the guidelines, when the CJ is talking about the having matters at 9 a.m., but which can be a discussion in the CUC on whether it is viable or not. Because you'll find that there's some areas the CUC will discuss and say 9, we can't because of the distances we travel or the challenges that we have. So even the guidelines are being discussed at the CUC. Because all the justice actors are again at the CUC. It's not chest stamping of the CJ, but it's a discussion we are having. And at the CUC level, that is where now we'll have the buy-in of all the actors, that we agree. If it's the DPP or the police, what time do you bring your matters? The DPP, by what time do you register your matters? The prisons, what time do you come and pick the prisoners? So at the CUC level, that is where we are at least addressing on a goodwill and for them to have the buy-in for the guidelines.
Honorable Tanui, Isaac is saying, we're a country of benchmarking. Benchmark this, benchmark the other. Have we benchmarked this process against other jurisdictions?
We have.
They are ahead. They need to benchmark us.
We've made quite some progress within the judiciary. But a country like Rwanda has made a bigger process in the entire justice sector because then they have an integrated case management system that touches all actors, from the police to the prosecution to judiciary, probation, children, and all that. So, and that is, I know there is a process now, and maybe that's what Honorable Kabucho has alluded to, that the NCAJ is actually having live conversations towards having an integrated case management process so that we don't have this silos. Judiciary is doing theirs, the prison is doing theirs, police are doing theirs. Why don't we have one system where once you are arrested, you can see that
you can track your
you can
path.
track this person was arrested, but at some point, on reaching the ODPP, the ODPP made a decision not to charge, or this person came to the judiciary. At the judiciary level, went to prison. So you can actually see, the pathway of this person right through. Yeah, so we are having that conversation. And we are looking towards Rwanda. Rwanda has a system which is working. So who is that, Isaac? We might need to have...
Tutakutuma Rwanda. The Honourable Elizabeth Tanui is the Deputy Registrar in charge of automation in the judiciary, and Honourable Caroline Kabucho is the Registrar of the Magistrates Courts. We've been talking about revised guidelines on timely processing of payment of fines and cash bail. Good work being done. Well done. Congratulations. And thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you too for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today. See you tomorrow. We'll be here. Tomorrow is that public holiday day?
Yes, it is.
We, the Shujas of Kenya, will be in studio. Good morning, 10 a.m.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.